What you got?
Video?
Yeah.
This is my official FMASU, FAMASU, as I call it, water bottle. Along with a lot of other little goodies in our bag, including official Desertscape sunglasses. We're official. We made it.
We did.
This is the peak of our careers, so enjoy it, Joe.
Guys, we're about 15 minutes late, so we'll start. We'll make this very simple. Let's start with introductions and what film you're here representing. Ed, we'll start with you.
All right, thank you. My name is Ev Duran. Here with the film All Its Name Implies, which is a documentary feature. It's about the wildfire, the campfire, which destroyed my hometown of Paradise, California in 2018.
I'm Jason Conforto. I'm the producer of Dog Valley. So our film plays tomorrow night, 6 p.m. It's a horrific story about Gordon Church, who was brutally murdered and tortured in 1988, and it kind of follows the lives of the killers after the event as well. So it's not a feel-good movie, but so I'm here with that movie. But I've been a film producer, director, editor for years now. So it's good to be here.
Dan Fowkes with Shred of Decency, and it is a World War II retelling of a World War II story that happened in 1944 in the German mountains about 3 American soldiers that are lost, and they stumble upon a cabin in the German forest, and a mother and a son take them in for the night.
I'm Joseph Gaulier. My film, The 13th Cross, which is about a guy who gets rid of unsavory types.
It's about the nicest way I could.
Yeah. It's a weird, kind of gritty film that we made for almost nothing, and it premieres tonight in 45 minutes.
Coming up.
Countdown behind us. So Joe gets a little more nervous.
Yeah, I'm real nervous right now.
I recognize it's a bit of a bummer because Ed's film is the only film most of you have had a chance to see, so you're going to be hearing these guys talk about stuff that you really haven't seen yet, so hopefully we can avoid spoilers. But I think all 4 of these guys have tremendous insight for a myriad of reasons. One of the other things that's cool is we've got 2 documentary filmmakers and we've got 2 narrative filmmakers, so we're going to get a nice little mixture. So I guess let's start with Ev. Kind of give a little bit of history, backstory, and maybe talk about why All Its Name Implies was so important to you.
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, Paradise is my hometown where my girlfriend and co-producer of the film, Monique Burwell, and I grew up. And so it was an incredibly personal story. Neither of us lived there on the day of the fire, which was November 8th, 2018. But both of our mothers still lived in the town.
Don't mind him. He's all right.
Both of our mothers still lived there, countless family and friends. So it was obviously very important for us to, once we decided to kind of start telling the story, to do it really rightly and do it from a perspective of people who knew and loved the town. We knew as the days went on after the fire as we started to learn sort of the scope of the devastation and how major and total it was, that there would be film crews and news media and everyone descending from all around the world. And we thought there should be at least one person or one group of people from the town that were representing the town and chronicling what happened. And that's sort of how it got underway. It's a no-budget film, so we were really just winging it, funding it ourselves as we went. I was fortunate enough to have access to some decent camera equipment, audio equipment. And then along the way, our Paradise Rotary Foundation in Paradise was granted us some money that will finish. That was really nice. But it's been a really long road, a very emotional journey. The film features interviews with my mother and my uncle, and Paradise is one of those small towns where everybody knows everybody. So it was a remarkable production process to see how interconnected we all were. I would email somebody, and they would say, "Oh, you should talk to this person," and that person would be my cousin. And then they would say, "Oh, well, you should let me introduce you to the mayor. Let me introduce you to this person." And it felt very community-centric, very community-powered. So that was really special. And it's been an interesting ride since. The last thing I'll say is I think making a film almost entirely on my own was very challenging, but it's nothing compared to trying to market a film and trying to do the PR and learn how to write press releases and press kits and all that stuff. It's been quite an adventure. So grateful for the opportunity to be here. This is really awesome.
Jason, can you talk about how Dog Valley was brought to you?
Yeah, so I work at Avalanche Studios. We're a video production company. We've done a handful of documentaries. It's funny to be introduced as a documentary filmmaker because I feel like I'm more of a narrative filmmaker than a documentary one, but I have been involved with a handful of documentaries. But we had a man come to us who wanted to do a documentary, and you guys will meet him tomorrow night, Chad Anderson. He is not a filmmaker, but he had this story, and he was looking for people to partner with to tell the story of Gordon Church. And it came to us, and our usual response to something like that is, if you've got funding, let's jump into it and do it. He didn't have funding, but he had a lot of passion for it, and he told us this story that was so unbelievable and complex, and it kind of blew our minds that the story had never been told and really needed to be told. And so we took on the project. It became a passion project for us, and 3 years later, we're finally to the point where we're sharing it, and the story's out there, and we're super proud of it, and we hope that it affects people and gets them thinking about who they are, what they believe, and how they can help.
It does. Everybody needs to go watch it. It's powerful stuff. Actually, Dan and Joe, one thing you guys both have in common is your ability to get these pretty good-looking movies out there with like almost zero money. Dan, talk about Shred of Decency. I mean, it's a period film, it's a war film, and like tell everyone where you shot it.
Yeah, so we shot it in the desert of southern Utah. And that kind of blows people's minds a little bit, because how are we going to do a German World War II story in the snow, in the desert? And growing up here, I've just known the locations, and I know when the snow comes and where it comes. And so being able to plan this story and to show the diversity of this area was really first and foremost for me, just to tell this story and say, yeah, we shot it in the desert. So,
you guys all have an opportunity to see that tomorrow. It's part of the Made in Utah walk, and it's very, very cool. And Joe, how about you? I mean, you made this movie for next to nothing, and you got a lot of commitment from people. And like you said, it's sure to turn some heads. It's pretty gritty. Can you talk a little bit about pulling that off and how long it took you to shoot?
We shot that movie in 15 days. The only people who were paid were the actors, and I gave them minimum wage to do it. But people seemed to be excited about the script, so they were willing to hop on and help out. The people who crewed the movie were people who were at film school with me, and we had all recently graduated, and so like a cinematographer is back there, Parker Peterson. He's holding the camera. In terms of the photography quality, he's to blame. So
he'll be up there with you with the post-screening Q&A in a couple hours.
I hope so.
And you have a bunch of cast and crew coming in too.
Yeah, I think at least 3 cast members are coming down, and we all got friends and family coming too. And
cool.
It's nerve-wracking.
Well, brain picking time. You guys have questions? Come on, don't be shy. There's one.
Well, it's actually a comment for Jerome. I forgot to mention it after the screening, but I really enjoyed the film, and I feel like I want to take a trip to Paradise now. just to see for myself what it's all about.
Thank you very much. It's been interesting because the film has only been shown to 2 audiences outside of the Paradise area, And I've obviously been really curious to see how people react who aren't personally connected necessarily. And so that kind of feedback is really awesome. I showed it to a small group of coworkers at my day job, and there was a girl who said, I'm not married and I don't have kids, but this movie makes me want to get married and have kids and move to a place like Paradise. And I thought, that is like the nicest compliment I can get. Thank you very much.
And it's crazy. We've had our own, we've had wildfires in the area, so it's kind of ironic that you're here this week after we've had all this craziness going on.
We walked out of the theater and the sun was glowing red yesterday, or 2 days ago.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy right after the show to see that.
Anybody else?
Does it say Paradise on your own?
It does say Paradise on my own. So the font is from the sign that all its name implies comes from, which is a welcome sign outside of Paradise. It says, may you find paradise to be all its name implies. That sign was sort of iconic to anyone that visited. It burned down, as did so much else. So many of us, the tattoo parlors in the neighboring community said that in the months afterwards, all they were doing was Paradise tattoos. My girlfriend got one as well. I mean, we were two of many lined up to.
That's cool. Awesome.
So, do you guys still have a lot of festival circuits to run, or do you have distribution done already? Open to all.
Should we just go down the road?
Sure. Yeah, a couple festivals. I had a Zoom interview with another festival today. I submitted to, I won't tell you how many, just as many as I could. And I think we've been accepted into 6 annual festivals so far, which is really exciting. And I've made the film available on Vimeo on demand for a cost. We're raising money for the town, so the majority of money we raise goes back to the town. But Vimeo on demand is not the most well-known platform, so the view counts are pretty low. So we're always looking for, that's the eternal struggle, is trying to find a way to get it out there to a wider audience.
Yeah, it's a hard year this year, as you guys all know, for festivals. That's why, again, big thanks to Desertscape for holding their festival. It really is. We've played in 3 festivals: the Canab one, Damn These Hills in Salt Lake, which is a gay festival, and then this one. And then we have submitted to several others that we're waiting to hear back from. So we're kind of in the waiting process for festivals. But it's hard to get accepted into a virtual festival right now. Not hard. It's easy to get accepted. It's hard to find out that it's a virtual festival. It's kind of deflating because you want to share the film and you want to be in the room when people view your film and see and experience it. There's something different about a live audience, and so we're super excited for that. The distribution side of it, we're really early on distribution, talking to a couple of people right now, but everything's kind of wide open for that. So we anticipate it will live on a streaming platform at some point.
Very cool. Shred Decency, we have a couple festivals that we've submitted to already. Utah Film Awards is just another one that we're waiting for because that's been pushed this year. But we're looking to my producer friend, Jason Muller, who helped with it. We've talked about releasing it this year online just to get it out there, and then probably do some type of veteran home type screenings because it's there's a lot of World War II veterans. Well, actually it's decreasing quite a bit, but there are a number of veteran homes where there's World War II veterans there, and it'd be nice to get it out there and just thanks for your service.
Yeah.
So.
Our festival strategy wasn't much of a strategy. We just kind of we put it out to after we got done with the edit, we put it out to 2 of the huge festivals, just to gamble. And then after that, kind of our goal was, we just wanted to make a movie. We wanted to do as good of a job as we could making a movie. And after that, it was kind of okay, if we don't get into these 2, which we didn't think we would, we want to play somewhere relatively local where the cast and crew and everybody can come see it. And a lot of festivals were canceled, and it's a blessing to be here. This is a really cool festival. So that we are showing here, and there's like 3 or 4 others we're just waiting to hear on. We did get distribution. It's going to be on VOD in September. I just got the text yesterday. So.
What would each of you say in the process of this that was the most significant or profound thing you learned about yourself as either a director or producer in the making of the film?
Go back this way. Just go in the line.
That's a good question. I think it really, going through this process, because the subject matter was obviously so personal and emotional, it was a really interesting sort of psychological exercise on myself to see how I can cope with something through filmmaking. And I thought that was, I feel like, to be honest, I won't go too far down this therapeutic rabbit hole here, but that in some ways I haven't even processed what happened, because the whole time I've been viewing it through the lens, literally, of a camera or of my computer screen, and I'm able to sort of filter reality, because I'm just working, right? I'm just looking through the camera. And it's not until, like, literally the other day when we watched it here, there's just random times where I'll watch it and I'll just kind of break down on myself now, because I'm like, oh man, that's my mom. You know, that's my dear friend who's up there talking. That's my uncle. And so it's been really interesting to see, for better and worse, how using film to sort of emotionally process something works. And I can't say I necessarily, like I said, like I can't say if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm still working that out. But it's been an interesting process for sure.
Yeah, Dog Valley became a really personal project for me as we were going through the filming. It took, like I said, about 3 years to make this film, and we went down to Cedar City and we filmed recreations of this horrific crime, which was very hard for us and the cast and to go through that. But about 2 years into the filmmaking process, my son, who was 18 years old, pulled my wife and I aside one day and told us that he was gay. And obviously we had no issues loving and supporting and helping him, but a few months later he decided to attend SUU for college, and we moved him into his dorm apartment, and it was a block and a half away from where Gordon Church was abducted. And for a father to know what Gordon went through, and to be leaving my son in that same place was hard. But we live in a better world than what Gordon Church lived in 1988, and that was so reassuring to me to see how much good has happened in our world. And I know this country's a mess right now, and I know that there's lots of problems, and this issue isn't solved. But I'm grateful that it's heading in the right direction, and that this can be a place where my son can be safe. And I truly didn't fear for my son while he was down there, and so I was grateful for that. But yeah, the project became real personal to me after that moment.
How Shredded Decency really became personal for me was, as filmmakers, it's always the money question, and it's always the trying to get funding for your project. And I think it just got to the point with me that just like, I'm just gonna go do this and pull the bootstraps up and do it myself and put some of my own funding into it and just take that journey. And the whole project was quite the journey, not just for me, but for the cast and the crew. Getting out there in the snow and then working around everyone's schedules, because there wasn't the budget to go towards that, but just having to balance everybody's schedule and manage that was quite the headache. And thankfully for Jason Muller, who will be here tomorrow, who helped produce it. Without him, I wouldn't have organized everyone's schedules the way he did. So it was, for me, it just became personal because it was just telling these soldiers' journey through the snow and then recording it on camera, and just the whole process for me was that I was going through my own little journey of just basically doing a lot of the work, and then the editing. So that was a big, as you probably know. Did you edit? But then, yeah, just the editing was another journey in of itself. So yeah, definitely it was very personal for me in that way.
I would echo something similar to what he said. This was my first feature. So the amount, like the mental block in my head about it and all the years leading up to it and stuff like that, I had to kind of get over and prove to myself that I could do something this big. And so, I learned I could do hard things, and I learned to stick to it. It took like 2 years of post because our editing equipment was stolen by a homeless guy in LA.
With footage, or?
No, thank God. He left the hard drives. He took the laptop and left my hard drive there. But we had backups anyway.
Well, that's good.
That was fine. But
This person with a conscience.
Yeah. So I had to edit with him, and he lives on the opposite coast. He lives in Virginia, and so it was just phone calls back and forth. The cut of the movie, it took 8 months just to do the edit, and then after that, every single step of the way, because everything was a whole new world to us. The biggest thing we'd done was a 22-minute short during film school, and then so now it was like, okay, now I got to find a guy to do the sound mix. I got to email everybody and get names, and then haggle for how much they would do it for, and then past that it was figuring out what does film distribution on our level look like, and navigating that world was its own sort of challenge, and so I learned to do hard things, I guess.
Mark?
Okay, so you just saw four just finished these huge projects, emotionally told, financially, the whole bit. Have you gotten back on the horse yet to make your next big project, or are you kind of taking a breather? What do you see next?
Yes and no. I would say I'm amazed. In my head, I thought this was my feature debut as well, my feature directorial debut. And I thought, I'll finish the film and then I'm done. And that's so far from the truth. And now it's been another, 8-9 months, and I'm still right in the middle of this film. And I feel like I'm going to be doing this for those 6 months, trying to get this film to go as far as it can. That said, I have several things in the pipeline, a couple other documentary ideas. My girlfriend and I are working on a documentary short about a gay drag lip sync show that is in Los Angeles that has a wonderful cast of characters. And I'm also I'm working on, this is a serious subject, so it's hard to talk about, but I'm working on a documentary perhaps on the nature of teenage suicide, because as I was going through all of my old footage for Paradise, I have these old videos of Paradise being a youngster. I found all these old video clips of a dear friend of mine who took his own life when we were teenagers. And I thought, man, if I could interview his parents who are very close to me and all my friends and show how all of our lives are 20 years later, and then be able to show all of us with our friend Jay back in our teenage years, that could be a really profound juxtaposition as to how something like that can affect people forever. And so I recently pitched that idea to his parents, which was a very difficult conversation to have, but just kind of waiting to feel that out. So that's another potential. Documentaries are probably going to be my next few projects, I would say.
We've already shot another documentary, so that's we're probably 90% done shooting. We've got an event that we're waiting for that will finish that doc up, and then we'll start into post-production on that. And then I'm raising money for a couple feature projects right now, so that's going. And then we're actively producing other commercials and other things too. So, yep.
I'm in the process right now of doing a Western called Lex Talionis, and it's just an original Western revenge story that I've written a couple years ago, and then kind of, with this year happening, I was able to go back and revisit it and try to tie in a message that involves human trafficking and just how big of a monster that is that we deal with throughout the world, and try and tie it into this Western story. So,
I spent COVID writing, written. They're not good, and they're in their first draft form. They're like 4 screenplays, and we picked one of them, and we're going with it. So, kind of total opposite of the movie that's about to show.
Like a romantic comedy or
No, I mean it's more like slice of life family film. Yeah, I'm sure we're not going to get distribution for it or anything. It's just something I want to do. It's something to push me because I felt like I want to do what I felt I did well with in this film. I want to kind of go in the opposite direction and like do a film that's like everything that I feel like I can vastly improve on. I want to have a movie that's focused on that sort of thing. And, yeah.
So we got a big premiere in about 15 minutes, so we can do one more question. So maybe a good one. Does somebody have one more? I got one right back here. No, you
Okay. How did you go about selecting talent for your films? So you're through documentarians, like how did you choose who to interview as features your subject?
I was really fortunate because a ton of the people who I ended up interviewing came to me, which was unusual, I think, but really compelling. When I first decided to make the film, created a Facebook page for it, and put out a request for media, photos and videos of the fire, and subsequently people just started emailing me their stories, some of whom didn't even ask to be interviewed, they just wanted somebody to tell it to, and I thought that was really powerful. So once the momentum started of that, they would talk to their people, and they would talk to their people, and I started to do emails left and right. It got awkward when I would have to start turning people down because that was, it felt counterproductive to what we were trying to do. But it was a pretty natural flow.
Yeah, we had specific people that were obviously involved with the case and the murder that we had a big list of people that we wanted to interview. A lot of people declined interviews. Gordon Church's family did not want to be a part of this project, and we had no right to say, hey, guess what? You get to mourn the way we want you to mourn, and so they ended up not being a part of the process. We got one of the 2 killers to do an interview with us, and so we have kind of a Skype interview with one of the 2 murderers in the documentary, and that was hard to get, but we were able to get that one. We also had the killer that denied our interview. We reached out to his mom and his sister, and they turned us down several times, and I reached out. I think on the second time I reached out to them, his sister said, you know what, we'll do it. And they set up the interview, and it was their only interview they granted in 30 years about the subject. And about a month and a half after the interview, his mother passed away. So it's her last experience that we were able to record. That was kind of a neat thing. We did some recreations, and we had to do some casting. And casting a victim and 2 murderers was the most emotional auditions I've ever done in my life. The only time I've ever cried throughout auditions and cried with actors and seeing real pain and real emotion and that was a tough audition, but then a difficult shoot with them as well because it's such a heavy and hard subject. So
your lead actor was gay too, correct?
Yeah, our lead actor,
So that was
the one
emotional
playing Gordon Church,
for him.
he is gay, and man, it's so and it was hard on the guys portraying the killers too, to be able to get into that mindset, and then also auditioning people who just didn't know how to throw a punch and didn't know how to. But as these guys are auditioning for these horrific roles, to hear them say vulgar things and just awful things, it's like, how can we cast a person who can have this come out of their mouth? But they were acting, but it's hard to tell sometimes that they're acting because it was so. They did such a great job with that.
Casting for ours was, I wanted to keep it as local as possible. So I just know there's a lot of amazing actors in the area, and so it was just a Facebook group throwing out there, getting some auditions, working, and then the lady who plays the lead, Barb Christensen, I've done some theater shows with her, so I was able to kind of gauge just her personality, and so she was a great fit for it. And I think one of the actors was from Salt Lake that came down and played our German corporal. So yeah, it was basically it was kind of off their looks first, because the guy who plays the soldier was that all-American 1940s just soldier that looked the part. So it was like, yeah, then he acted, and it's perfect.
I offered one part to someone I had done a short with before. However, the rest of the movie, including the lead actor Eric Wood, we just put out a casting call on Facebook. We rented a room at the Provo Library. It's somewhere that's kind of centralized location for northern Utah, and we just they came in, they did readings, and we filmed them, and then we looked back at the footage, and that's how we got most of our actors. So.
All right, guys, so we got a premiere to get into, so let's hear it. We want to wish you all out to the feel-good movie of the year.
Oh, yes. It's such a comedy.
You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $10 goodbye. John, what do you have to say?
Just that we're excited that you guys could see this world premiere.
World premiere, let's hear it. World premiere, That's it.
That's it. That's all we got. Sorry about the hiccup right at the beginning. There will be 2 more during the movie. We're just trying to spread them out. Just kidding. We're gonna. They're competent. We promise.
Let's just get things moving. We want to introduce the filmmaker of the movie you're about to see. Come on up, man.
Thank you guys for coming out during a pandemic. I hope you enjoy the film. We have a Q&A afterwards, and cast and crew here, and their friends and family, and my family, and thank you guys.
13th Cross, everyone. Let's hear it. I don't want to butcher his damn last name again, so I'm just going to bring Joseph D. up to us. Perfect. And he can I think there's a lot of cast and crew here, am I right? I heard a bunch of cheering. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of cast here. Come on up, man. And you got your DP with you, correct? Awesome.
All right, well, thanks for sitting through that. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out, guys. Who else is here? Do you guys want to come out? Did Chelsea want to come out? Robert? There's someone else I'm not saying, sorry. Does anybody have any questions?
Question. I got a mic here. If somebody's got a question, just flag me down.
So, I I know nothing about filmmaking, but I've got to believe that trying to get into character and play the mood and the mind and so forth, to go to some of those dark places, if it's an evil role or an evil scene or whatever, how do you separate the character from who you are? And does it ever get to the point where that role or that character or going to that dark place affects who you are, your psyche, your soul, who you are?
I feel like that's a question for Melanie.
Oh, okay. Hi. That's a really good question. I feel like I thought about this character like way too hard, especially like at the beginning. When I was auditioning for this project, like I rehearsed the monologue like so much, like way like over rehearsed it. And then I went to an audition like 2 days before I auditioned for this, like for a different thing. And I overthought that one too. And I went to the audition and I did it like really, really just dramatic. And the director was like, I'm going to have you do that again and I'm going to give you one note less. So that's like all he said, but it like meant so much. And I was like, oh yeah, like you don't really need like all that energy for like every scene, you know? And so I did it again and I did it less. And I didn't get that part, but I used that same advice like 2 days later when I auditioned for this. And I got a part, so that's good. But yeah, I think that acting is kind of something you either got or you don't, and you don't really need to think about it like that hard. But yeah, like what was the other part of the question? Like how it affects you as a person? Well, I don't really think any of Renee rubbed off on me, which I think is a good thing. But it was like, I think this was one of the first films where I have a very rare mental disorder called psychasthenia, and it's always been like really hard to deal with and stuff, and I used to like push it out of my acting, and I'm like, nope, acting is separate than that, you know? But this was like the first movie I think that I actually let myself like draw from that, and it actually like, it didn't ruin it, you know, it made it better. So I think part of Chelsea got into Renee, but I don't think any of Renee got into Chelsea because I didn't really want her to.
Definitely the darkest character I've ever played, but nowhere near Rob, myself. I'm always really the good guy. So actually it was kind of a bucket list thing for me to do something like this, and I loved getting killed. It was really awesome.
As far as the dark role, yeah, it can affect you. This one was really fun to play though, as far as going to the opposite. I feel that on the most part, I'm hopefully opposite, but I think we all have different levels. I think the biggest part that I noticed was I was really, really hating Moses. Like I was just like, argh. So yeah, it does kind of get into you if you let it. So it's just kind of, everyone has their own different techniques and stuff, but yeah, it can affect you, but everyone has their process. So if you listen to a lot of good music to get into character and then good happy stuff to get out, that helps me a lot too. So
I also just have to call out somebody really quick. I just have to say that those bruises, when I like come back into the house and I'm like holding Moses's like hair, like you can see bruises on my arms. I just want to say that wasn't pickup because like our lead actor was like very aggressive and he like left bruises on my arms. But he was a phenomenal actor, so I just had to like say that. But he was a phenomenal actor, so I think he brought a lot to the movie. But I just had to point that out.
Anybody else?
It was actually a documentary. It was real.
Can you talk about the budget? This thing was super cheap. You guys got a lot of mileage out of very little money. Can you talk a little bit about that? And did you guys ever catch the asshole that stole the equipment?
No, I never did. And luckily the computer wasn't part of the budget. But no, we were able to raise $5,000 thanks to friends, families, and I had some podcast listeners helped out with that as well. And then I paid for the rest of it, the other $4,000. And really it was just like all the actors were paid very little, but they were paid. And then everybody on the crew was not. And what else did we do? Parker, how'd you get the camera?
We bagged on the street.
Because we didn't have to rent any equipment or anything.
No, luckily, my brother-in-law, his company went under, and they had a video department, and so they were just liquidating everything. And from the generosity of my family, they gave me a little loan, and I was able to get the equipment for about like a fifth of the price. We shot on a Blackmagic 4K, which at the time, with the lenses that we got, it was just like, yeah, it was expensive, but it was still expensive, but it could have been way more expensive. So yeah, at least we had that going for us.
Didn't get any permission to shoot anywhere. We just
Stole shots.
Yeah. Who allowed you to script the? Yeah. That's my car. Yeah.
See his car. It still has
The first car was a friend of mine, and it was like a really old car, and he didn't care about it, and I just asked him straight up, like, dude, can we car crosses and everything? He's like, yeah, man, that's metal. So we did that. And then when he switched cars, it became my little tiny red car, and he can car whatever he wants to, man, I don't care.
We got a question back here.
What was it like filming in a trailer court? You got any fun experiences with that?
That was second unit.
So your question, it was about the trailer park? Yeah, so those, I don't know if they're pretty hard to forget. The two guys that Antonio, the guy with the big beard, is talking to, the guy with the big belly, they actually live there in the trailer park, and they were like, what are you guys doing out here? Are you filming something? We're like, yeah, we're making a movie. Joe wasn't here on this day, so it was me and Paige, our producer, who were directing that day. And I was like, Paige, do we want them in the movie? Like, what do we want to do? Like, are we going to get shot here, or what's going on? And, Antonio, the douchey landlord guy, amazing actor, he just went over and, like, totally made friends with them. And he was like, hey, do you guys want to be in a movie? And they were like, hell yeah, we'll be in the movie. And we're like, there's no money involved, and they were totally cool about it. And yeah, that was probably the highlight from the trailer park. Yeah, it was fun.
Anybody else?
So in the last scene where you were in the show, how hard did he actually grab? You look legitimately hurt.
The one where we were like fighting in the kitchen?
Yeah.
That was cheated, honestly. I think one time it was like kind of hard, but we like talked about it after. We were like, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. But that was mostly fake, which is good.
Anybody else? Got one back here.
Just seeing you guys as a crew, I can tell you guys have a really nice camaraderie and I'm kind of wondering what your set, what the set was like, and I don't know, are you guys planning on working with each other again? Because you guys are really nice all together.
I know me and Parker are definitely planning on working with each other again. If we have the right part for the actors, then sure. The camaraderie on set, I think, yeah, we had a good time together. We were all old friends, the crew anyway, and we had a good shorthand and made fun of each other and joked around, and it was, I don't know, how about from an outsider's perspective? What was the movie?
I'm just gonna be honest with you, I didn't understand like anything that you guys were talking about. Like they would like literally quote movies like the entire shoot, and I'm like, I've never seen any of these movies, so I don't know what you're talking about. And that was like literally the entire 3.5 week shoot, people. It was like, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like I just don't understand this like at all. But I thought that it was like very professional, especially for a low budget production. I've worked on low budget things and higher budget things, and some of the lower budget things is kind of just like nobody like really understands like what's happening. But they pulled it off like very, very well. It felt like I was on a set that like would have had a bigger budget than this. And I liked that they were all nice. Like I've worked in LA and like at least like very dramatic and like. A lot of people like put down each other and stuff, and I remember I like got into a car with like 2 or 3 of the actors that I was working with in LA, and they were like, they were just like all like ripping on each other, ripping on the crew, and I'm like, you shouldn't like do that, you know, like we're all in this together. And like, I mean, they did that in a joking way, but like they didn't like actually like do that. And so that's one of the things I like about working in Utah is like people try to like befriend each other and not like, oh, like they're doing this wrong, you know. I don't think that's how filmmaking should be done.
Woo!
Good answer.
They were really awesome. One of my takeaway was he's like, imagine you guys are like magnets. So his movement towards me and my magnet back. I thought that was a really cool direction. I'll take that. I have it all recorded actually. I was just showing my friends all the video, and I was like, I've gotten gray since I filmed this movie.
I think my favorite part was the cleanup afterward. I'll never forget cleaning up all the blood, and then the rolling up.
Clean up that entire last scene. Like, she's amazing.
The rolling up. The carpet that was rolled up, and then we were all looking. It was like maybe like midnight or something. And we're looking at this, and I'm like, I am not taking that to dump it anywhere because it's just blood and carpet rolled up with like a.
We got one right here.
What inspired this story?
I had a friend who found out a family member was an abuser, and I was there when he was when they found out the news. It was awful. It was terrible. And I tried to write a script about that, like a family going through that, and I got about 30 pages in, and I just was not emotionally, I couldn't handle it. So I imagined a character who was a previous abuser, or a victim, sorry, and that was the Tamara character, and it just kind of driving around, and then I thought of a thriller, and I was like, that sounds more fun. So that's what I wrote.
Well, you just answered my question. However, I want you to know that you really pulled me in emotionally with this. But there was a part of me that was rooting for Moses, knowing what these people have done to kids. And then there was another part of me, you know, the reason of me that was saying it's never okay to answer violence for violence. However, I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
That is an awesome comment to end on. Let's hear it for Team the Desertscape.